pull, your spouse, your family, like those people, the pull applies. But I think for your brothers, for men, they need a push, man.
We're going to make some highly capable men, and we're going to do it. And you're listening to like the ground floor of it right now on this podcast.
I think that we can have a bigger impact by being more unapologetic about calling men out on their excuses.
I think all guys should be able to do a pull-up. I do. Like, but that's me kind of pulling them in and being like, bro, you should be able to do a pull-up. Like, let me help you get there. Like, it's not that hard.
You owe it to your family to get your shit together, period.
Welcome back to the podcast. Gabe Yanez and I, we are on for our weekly episode, and we didn't even have any like pre-riff-raff. There was no like, pleasantries. Gabe's just like, I'm coming in hot, bro. I'm like, all right, fine. I'm going to start recording. So we have not had any previous conversations. It's the morning over here. And Gabe, you said you're coming in hot. What are you coming in hot about? What is
You're
so
the
bad?
one that said you're the one that said that 2025 is the year of no more fucking around. That's what you said.
Yeah, I did.
These are words. So, dude, how are you not fired up? How are you not coming in fucking guns blazing?
Oh, I thought you had like a bone to pick with me because I saw your Instagram story. We're like,
well, I have a bone to pick.
I hear Jason's talking about pulling guys. I'm trying to push motherfucker.
Well, yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, if you want to start there, we can start there. Dude, here's the problem that I have with what you put up. I think that at the end of the day, I don't even think it's controversial at all. I think I'm right. There are so many men out there that are doing inspiring shit. So many, like that are doing the work, that are working out, that are, doing the thing, like you like to say. And it's not enough. It's clearly not enough. Like the proof's in the pudding. What's the average guy, dad specifically right now? Overweight, broke, not particularly happy, not fulfilled, right? Like that's the average. So I don't think that having inspirational guys out there like you, because 100%, dude, you walk the walk, right? And like you said in your post, like when people are ready, I mean, obviously, I think this goes without saying, like we're ready. Like we have incredible fitness programs so that when people feel like they're at the point where like, hey, I want to take the step, like we'll be here. I think that goes without saying. That's the reason that we built Train Hard. But again, I think that just isn't enough. And for someone, which I know that you agree with this, that like feels this calling and this responsibility to help men become capable, I think that it's way too passive an approach to just be like, hey, I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to inspire you. And when you're ready, like we'll be here. I think that's just, it's a step below what men need. And I've been thinking about this a lot because one of the things that I remember about playing college sports that I really appreciated was that my circle of friends that I'm still really close with today, like, dude, we pushed each other and we held ourselves accountable and we were like really tough on each other's at times. Like if you missed practice, if you showed up and like mailed it in, like, dude, we'd be like, what are you doing? Like, what's wrong? And if something wasn't wrong, like, dude, you got to show up, man. Like we're trying to win a championship or we're trying to, prepare for the championship meet. Like, and I don't understand why we lose that now as adults or why it's this like maybe shunned upon thing specifically with men, because I think the other very important distinction to make here, and I actually had, one of our good friends, John, messaged me on Instagram. And I love the way he said it. He said, pull your spouse, your family, like those people, the pull applies. But I think for your brothers, for men, they need a push, man. Like there's a big difference between how men react to this stuff and women. Like there's that joke of like, if a woman asks her girlfriend, like, hey, do I look fat? Like, it's like, no. Like you look great. Like, that's great. If a man asks his guy friend, like, do I look fat? He's like, dude, I have 3 fat friends and you're 2 of them. There's some truth to how men like communicate and how honestly honest they can be with each other and kind of like the honesty that we need to like really kind of shake us into seeing that we're falling short in areas that I think requires a push. I think requires dude, if you decided to have kids, if you decided to jump into this thing that's fatherhood, like you owe it to your family to get your shit together, period. Like, it's not like when you're ready, we'll be here. It's like, why are you not ready now? Like, is it because you're quote unquote busy? I think that's a bullshit excuse. Is it quote unquote, you don't have access to equipment? We've said this many times, buy a sandbag. It's the best $80 you'll ever spend. You can work out anywhere. Like what's the excuse after that? It's like, oh, well, it's a busy season. And like, dude, you can find the time. Like we've talked about these things time and time again on the podcast. You need 10 minutes a day and a sandbag to make a difference. And everyone has access to that. So I just think that, again, the reason I made the video, and part of it was to give you a hard time, is I think that with everything we're doing with Train Hard and the amount of people that have signed up for the newsletter and, watch our videos and listen to the podcast, I want to be more of a push and not just so much a pull in 2025, because I honestly think that men need it. And honestly, dude, it was cool. Like I haven't posted something on social media. And again, I have nowhere near a following like you do, where I had so many guys respond to that super positively. I had some really cool conversations with guys that are like, dude, like I needed to hear that. Like, yeah, man,
yeah, like Jason,
100% correct.
Jason's fucking wrong. Like, yeah,
no, not that at all. But I think that that's the point that I'm trying to make. I think that also, to your defense, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, I think a lot of this is from being in the fitness industry for years, because when you're in a brick and mortar gym, I think what you're saying completely applies. Like when you're a coach at a CrossFit gym, you can't fucking berate a member and be like, dude, you got to get your shit together. I mean, like, no, you have to be very kind of like, like, hey, like we'll be here when you need to. I think it's just very different. But when you have this platform to talk to men, I think that it does require something that's a little bit more raw and honest and calls men out on their bullshit. Because at the end of the day, like if you're listening to this and there's any reason why, it's December and you're like, not prioritizing your health and fitness, like, I don't know, if we peeled back the layers of bullshit, like it's bullshit. It's an excuse, period.
Yeah, I mean, I think the post we're talking about is, I just happened to see this picture from Gabe and I at High Rocks, and it was cool. It was me pulling a sled. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And I was like, hey man, we're going to pull people into fitness. Like we're going to pull, we're not going to push. And it just happened to align with the picture. So I don't know. The picture
now I'm going to give you a hard time, because what you said exactly was, I've never been more convinced than ever.
Okay, hang on. But what I mean by that is, I'm going to keep pulling, man. I'm going to be a beacon. But I think where Gabe is, and I agree with you on the women and men and the difference there. But like, dude, I'm just at a place, man, where like, I'm gonna put it out there, and I'm gonna tell people that I'm trying to be super jacked when I'm 50, because I'm 39 now. Like, and I'm gonna keep putting the word out. And that to me is like today I put up something like, I think all guys should be able to do a pull up. I do. Like, but that's me kind of pulling them in and being like, bro, you should be able to do a pull up. Like, let me help you get there. Like, it's not that hard. Like, and so when I think about pull, yeah, it's a little bit different with your family and your friends. You got to be really, really careful about that. I actually, I've had several messages come through from the newsletter about that we could talk about. But in regards to what I was trying to get across, man, is like in 2025 in particular, like we're on a mission through this podcast, through the newsletter, through social, that like we're going to make some highly capable men, and we're going to do it. And you're listening to like the ground floor of it right now on this podcast. Like we've been talking on this podcast for 100 episodes. But we got so many more in the tank. And the goal is to have a group of guys, many deep, who just become highly capable in the gym. And then we get the stories of how that impacts their lives in all of their areas. That's when it's really going to be fruitful, is when we start making that generational change we talk about, right? Where people crush their workouts to get their first pull-up, but all of a sudden, their wife tells them that they're showing up different. Their wife tells them that they're showing up with, just a different mindset. And like, that's going to be cool, man. And we get messages about it all the time. Dude,
100%. I mean, those things fire me up, but I think that, and personally, I've come to this conclusion, and maybe you disagree. I think that we can have a bigger impact by being more unapologetic about calling men out on their bullshit excuses. Like that is where I think that maybe me and you like don't completely agree. Like, I'm going to continue doing me. Like, I have these races that I'm planning to do. Like, I'm going to keep working out, obviously. But to me, like putting that stuff out, sharing that stuff, I don't know. It's almost like, am I really doing it to inspire people? Or is it kind of this like, I don't know, like little bit of ego, like, hey, look at me and all the things that I'm doing. And how useful is that versus, using the platform that luckily I have because of this brand, because of you, and kind of bringing me into the fold of like talking to men the way that I would want to be talked to if I was falling short. That's kind of how I've thought about it. Like if I was really just like, for whatever reason, and again, I think that this is important too, because I had another guy message me and he was like, I agree with this, but I think it's like, it's a fine line, right? Between like shaming anyone, men, into like where they are now versus like kind of shaking them into realize that, hey, you could do better than this, right? And it is like a good conversation of like, where is that line? Because my intention is never to shame anyone. Like you've gotten to the point that you've gotten to because of the circumstances that I have no insight on. And for all I know, it could be really tough things that like I would probably be in the same position if I were you, right? Like who am I to say that I would have been able to been disciplined and good with my nutrition and good with fitness and all the things if I had had to deal with anyone else's, stress levels, circumstances, work. Like that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to be judgy. I'm not trying to shame anyone, but I'm trying to be very objective and raw about the fact that like, okay, so what? Like, what are you going to do now? Right? Like you got to the point that you got to, what's the next step you're going to do? Are you going to continue kind of like, man, this was really hard and woe is me, and I'm not going to do the thing that's going to put me in a better position? Or are you finally going to be like, you know what? These guys are fucking right. Like, I don't have time. I don't have a lot of time. I don't have, a bunch of, extra income to build out a garage gym. I definitely don't have enough to like join a gym, but like I can buy a pair of dumbbells on Craigslist. I can buy a sandbag and, maybe save some money by not, I don't know, whatever your vice is, not doing that for a month and using that for a sandbag. Like I could do that, and I can commit to 1 workout a week, and you start there. And then you do 3 workouts a week. And then it's 5 workouts a week. And then you're working out. So you're like, hey, I'm going to do a little better with my nutrition. And then you're doing better with your nutrition and you're working out. So you're like, you know what? I should do better with my sleep. And then you're doing all those things. So you stop drinking on Fridays because you're like, man, I don't want to do a disservice to all these other areas. And the next thing you know, in 3 months, you are a different fucking man. You're a different husband. You're a different dad. And everyone around you is better you for it. That's what I think that I can do a better job at. And again, maybe you disagree on kind of the approach. But again, the way that I've thought about it, and I've thought about this a lot, is like, if I was falling short, this is what I would want to hear. I would want someone to be like, Gabe, you're fucking up, dude. Like, let's go. You made a promise to be better than this. And for whatever reason, you've gotten to a point that isn't your potential. Like, clean it up, get your act together, and fucking do the thing. That's how I would want someone to like, someone that cared about me to like, tell me to get my shit together. And that's what I'm trying to do. No shame, no judgment. It's just like, let's fucking go.
Dude, LFG 2025. I wanted to bring up, so from a tactical perspective, so we have the newsletter that goes out. And
solid pivot.
And if you're not on the newsletter, you got to jump on the Never Zero newsletter. The Never Zero newsletter is a weekly newsletter that goes out and just has insight. But recently, I got a response to one of them, and I know, Gabe and I get a lot of responses, and they're amazing. Just keep sending them. But one of them was this idea that this guy was saying, hey, he goes to work, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever. He gets home, he has 2 young kids. He's tired. He only has a certain amount of time with his kids before they end up going to bed and whatnot. And like, dude, I get it. For me, it's a little bit different now because a lot of times I'm at home recording, filming, whatever, but I also travel a lot, and I need to be careful and prioritize my time. And so I wanted to just discuss this because I think it's relevant to our audience. And the discussion point is, how do you have a mental reset? How do you allow yourself to go to work, get tired? Your kid's been at school. Your kid's been doing the thing. Your wife has been doing the thing. Whatever the thing is, it doesn't matter. And then all of a sudden you have a short, minute period of time before they go to bed. This is like, let's just say Monday through Friday for most guys, most of the time, 9 to 5, they get home, they do a little something, and then their kids go to bed. And this guy was telling me he was having a difficult time kind of like not feeling anxious or not feeling like kind of like easily upset by the kids, because like you're coming home from work, maybe you want to have a couple of beers or whatever, and all of a sudden you want to kind of down regulate, but the kids are easily disturbing you, right? And what I came to the conclusion of, and what I told him was that I think this mental reset is super important. This is something that I'm doing on a regular basis now. It's been really helpful for me, especially when I get home from traveling. Dude, I mean, like the way I go with travel, I try and go the shortest period of time I possibly can to get home as quick as I can. So a lot of time what that means, I'll get home at midnight, I'll get home at 11, I'll get home late, or I'll get home like really early the next day, whatever, because I'm trying to prioritize the time at home. One of the problems with that is that it's stressful, right? You're at work, you're going around, and when you come home, you could bring that stress in the house. It's been something I've had to struggle with for a really long time. So one of the things that I think would be really helpful for anybody listening to this, and something I've been enacting the last while, is identifying a place on your property and having like this mental reset that occurs somewhere on your property. So for me, we have like this really cool backyard that like overlooks the forest type of thing. And it's been a view that I've like worked my entire life to try and get. That's always been the goal of mine, is to always get this view. And so I cherish this view. I cherish this place. It's very special to me. So when I get home from work or I'm getting home from travel, before I walk into the house, I go there and I spend like maybe 2 minutes and I just do like a nice, like deep, like little breathing, just a nice like attitude of gratitude. And then I go into the house, man. It's been super big for me. And so to answer this guy's question and to maybe lay out the framework for other guys, if you're coming home from work and your energy isn't right, and that's something I've struggled with for a long time, identify a place that's on your property. Know that place is like something that allows you to ground yourself and have gratitude, and then boom, walk into the house and be the guy that you want to show up as. I know that was a hard pivot, but it was really important to me to share.
Yeah, and I think that kind of stuff is so important and really not talked about enough, of like what 2 minutes and the impact they can have on shifting gears, because this makes me think of a bunch of different conversations we've had. But, when it comes to even working out and like getting into recovery mode as soon as possible, like even if you're short on time, because all it takes is 2 minutes. If you spend 2 minutes before you walk out of the gym after doing like super high intensity force workout or like one of our sand workouts, like somebody really kicked your butt, you did some great work, awesome. But if you can take the 2 minutes to take some deep breaths and shift your body from sympathetic to parasympathetic, you're going to switch over to recovery a lot sooner, which means you're going to get more of the gains that you got from that workout. And you're just going to be better suited to not take that frantic energy, which was great, served you in the workout, to whatever you're doing next. So it could be so important to have those resets in many different respects. I think the example you brought up is a great one. I think when you're done working out is a really good one. I remember the call we had with Nick, and I love the thing that he does, which is, having his week have very specific days, so that you also, because it takes energy to switch gears, right? Like it takes energy to go from podcast to deep work writing a newsletter or deep work writing copy for an ebook. Like that for me uses two very different areas of my minds. One is like, very kind of like creative. The other one's like deep, like, I'm trying to put out, like quality content. So to segment out those things, so you're doing all the stuff that requires this type of energy on, say, Mondays, all the stuff that requires this type of energy on Tuesdays, then you also don't need as many of those like transitionary periods, which, like take a little bit of effort, because they do. Obviously, that's easier said than done for some people. Some people just have a schedule where like, hey, I work 9 to 5 every day. I'm obviously going to see my family every day. And that's where I think it's really valuable. But that's what I remembered. That episode with Nick had a bunch of really good advice, and that was one of them.
Dude, something else I want to bring up while we're on this subject. Actually, we're not even on this subject, but I'm going to bring up this subject. Is that, so Ash,
right?
So this is like totally personal, like, and this podcast is about leveling up guys, right? And a lot of women listen to this podcast, and they also get value because they hear it from a man's perspective, which, dude, we've gotten a ton of messages about this, and which is super rewarding. So if you're a woman listening to this, shout out to you. If you're a guy listening to this, take this into consideration, what I'm about to say. So Ash and I, we've been together, 25 years. We've been married almost coming on 16. And, you have different love languages, right? And so like, for me, I like affection and stuff like that, right? Like, and where she likes me to like do things for her. I know that we've pulled this up on the podcast in the past, but there's like different types of things, right? So she likes it when I don't know, do something, right, for her, like a chore or whatever. And I like it when she just like shows me affection, makes me feel a certain way. And so interesting, because a couple weeks ago, I saw like this big shift, and Ashley started being like overly affectionate to me, like, dude, overly affectionate. And I was like, this is fucking weird. I was like, what is going on here? And so she did it. And I was like, so finally, I was like, Ashley, what's going on? Like, are you on like some type of like, I actually asked her, I was like, are you like taking gummies right now? Or like, what is going on here? Like, you're like, I was like, dude, you're being like super affectionate. And she's like, no, I'm just trying to show you what you do to me. And I was like, huh. And I was like, and so we started having a conversation about it. And what was super interesting to me is that I want it. So I always like show affection, but it gives her no space to show it because it's just so overwhelming to the other person. So when she was doing it to me, I had no opportunity to do it because there was no space. There was no opportunity. It was just like overwhelming for me, like the amount of like whatever. And so it really put things in perspective for me in this idea, like if that was something I want, I also need to like give her the space to be able to provide it to me. I was just too overwhelming with that. So it never gave her the opportunity to give it back. And so I wanted to use it as a real life example because her and I had to have a conversation about that, about like giving, like I needed to give her some space to be able to do that because I only felt that for the first time when she started like being over the top about it. I was like, fuck, that's what I feel. That's what I'm doing. That's crazy. So anyways, highly personal story, but it's a really good example for guys listening. Like if there's something that you've been talking to your spouse about that you need, like look at it through different lenses because this lens really opened my eyes up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where to take that from, but I'm just letting you know that was a real life example.
No, I mean, it's funny, right? Like you not giving people space and being overwhelming. I can't believe it. It blows my mind that that's feedback that you're getting from the person you live with.
Whoa. For the record, I've never been holding hands and trying to hug up on Gabe consistently all day long.
Dude, you're an energetic guy. And it's just funny. I'm giving you a hard time, but I can see how that, is a lot for people in whatever way. But going back to what you're saying, and we've talked about this in the past, man, like communication is such an important, it's at the bedrock of the relationship you have with your spouse. And dude, I'm not perfect at it. It's constantly a work in progress. But what I try and remind myself of, and I read this in a book, now I forget the name, but we talked about it on a previous podcast episode, but it's like, you can't at any point, no matter how long you've been together with your partner, like just assume that in that moment what their needs are from you, because what you've done last year might not be what they need this year. And that's been a big learning for us as we've gone through being without kids to being with one kid to being with two kids. Like Ariel's needs for me have been vastly, like incredibly different, going from when she wasn't pregnant to when she was pregnant the first time, to when she's dealing with one kid, to when she's dealing with one kid and being pregnant, to when she has two kids. And if we hadn't checked in constantly and course corrected what she needed from me, I could see how easily, and this happened at times, resentment builds up or there's just friction there. And that's a very specific example for us because, our needs have changed a lot over the past 3 years because so much changes when you have kids or obviously when your wife is pregnant. But that's a really good example of you can't assume that like, hey, the same things I did when you were pregnant with Shay, the same ways that I showed that I was supporting you and helping you is what you need now when you're pregnant and have a baby. Like I have to do very different things. So I would never have known that if we hadn't checked in constantly. So that's the example that I can share.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, hey, take it for what it's worth, guys. Like, dude, we burned the boats a long time ago. And hopefully a lot of people listening burn the boats with their spouse too. And so you got to do whatever it takes to maintain that relationship, period. Like
be proactive about it. Like don't let it get to the point where like something is bothering you to the point where it's like, about to blow up into, a huge fight that isn't about the thing that you're actually fighting about. It's about this thing that bothered you 3 months ago. Like the way to get in front of that is just always check in, have conversations, man. Have a time, whether it's a time during the week or a time at the end of every day where you literally just like, how are you doing? Like what's going on? And have an actual conversation. Because one thing that I noticed that we got into a little bit of a bad habit, especially with the two kids, because dude, I mean, two young kids is very exhausting, is we get to the end of the day, we put Shay to sleep and Charlie's sleeping on Ariel, and the both of us just kind of like tune out and like we're either on our phone or like watching something on TV. But we had to stop making that time where we're just like literally tuning out because it's the only time that we had to check in with each other. So that was a switch that we had to make, be like very intentional about, because honestly, dude, at the end of a full work day and working out and getting the kids to bed and dinner and cleanup. Like once you get on that couch at, 7:30, 8 p.m., the easiest thing to do is literally just open your phone and fucking scroll. But there's something else that needs to be taken care of. Like honestly, and that takes a little bit of work, but it's been a huge game changer for us. So it's easy to tune out, man, but you got to be proactive about this stuff and not let it turn into a bigger thing than it needs to be.
For sure. I wanted to bring up this nutrition conversation.
Let's go.
Dude, so just to set the table. Oh, you see what I did there? Just to set the table. This nutrition conversation is really interesting for me because, dude, I mean, I've been in the fitness space forever. I've done a lot of different things. I don't think I've ever put out any content ever, really, about nutrition. And I've done almost everything in the book. But I think it's time to put out some content to show people what I'm currently doing and show people maybe what I want to change to and see how it impacts things. I think people would probably be surprised if they saw the way that I eat potentially now. And I think I'd be curious to see what I could add to make me perform better, feel better, and maybe lean out a little bit. Like I want to lean out probably like, I want to lean out a little bit for sure. That's my plan. Like 5 pounds lean out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, not like just a little, maybe 5, maybe 8 pounds. Like just, you know what I mean? Just cut it up a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. We've kind of talked about it a little bit because here's the thing, like I can't imagine eating the way that you eat. Like from when I've been around you, like you don't eat anything until like dinner, basically. You don't have breakfast. You'll have like a little bit of your brand cereal and then you just like go. You might grab some coffee, but you like go, maybe you grab a Starbucks sandwich and then like dinner ends up being like a really big meal where you're obviously making up for your kind of caloric needs and it works for you, right? And I think that it works for you in a very objective sense in that, we've even done the blood work stuff. Like you're incredibly healthy, you perform at a very high level, you look the way that like, I would say, honestly, majority of people want to look. So clearly it works for you. But I think what's important and what I've talked about in the past is that a lot of people listening, like the reason that they want to make changes to their nutrition is because they're not happy where they currently at. Like they need a change, a significant change is that. Like their health needs to significantly change, their body composition needs to significantly change, or their performance needs to significantly change, or all of the above. You've earned the right to be very much at a maintenance place. Like you are very, like I said, super healthy, good body composition, and you perform at a very, very high level. So for you, and this is why I not that I have a problem with, but I don't think that these things are as helpful as people see them to be when like, big personalities online or athletes share like a day in eating, like full meals. Cause you have to understand that like what people, like for example, if we documented what you do for a day of eating, you have to understand that that's not what got Jason Khalipa to where Jason Khalipa is now. What got Jason Khalipa to where he is now is like years and years and years of training very hard and doing what I would say is like the majority, like most of the right things nutrition wise for a very, very long time. Like you've never been someone that's gone, I would assume, a month or 2 months doing all terrible eating habits. Like, have you been optimal all your life? No. But I think you're truly like an 80-20 guy that's been 80-20 all your life and have also trained really hard. So you're in a great spot. And I think the average person doesn't do that. I think the average person goes through these like yo-yo phases of I'm super strict, or it's like I eat like a child.
Yeah.
Super strict, eat like a child. And that's terrible.
Well, like, I can't relate to that, right? Because I don't know what that's like.
Right. Yeah. Right. But I think that's where what I'm hoping to do with the content that we put out that's nutrition is yes, like use you as like, hey, I think we can make some improvements on the margins for Jason Khalipa. We can probably make you feel a little bit better, perform a little better. I think that there's a place where if you were having more carbs before your high effort stuff, like you would feel better. I think that you eating some more satiating foods earlier in the day would maybe prevent you from like just having as much of some of the foods that you probably have at the end of the day. And that alone would help you lean out. But again, those are all improvements on the margins, where I also want to put out really helpful information for the person that's like, going back to the beginning of our conversation, is looking in the mirror and is like, I need to fucking change something, like really, really change something. So I think that to me is a important part of telling this story, is how different like what you need from nutrition changes is to what the average person needs. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, and my goal, really, I got inspired from that conversation with Jordan and Syed, is I got inspired to just put out content that's like no bias, no bullshit, no vested interest. We're not going to talk about any type of supplementation. We're not going to talk about anything. We're just going to talk about, dude, this is what we're talking about here.
And we'll talk about some supplementation. Everyone should be on creatine. You should be on creatine. I have my mom on creatine.
Bro, I've never taken creatine in my life.
Dude, honestly though, like do a little bit of Googling on it, like 100%. It's like the one thing that anyone you talk to, it's the most widely researched supplement on the planet on how safe it is and how beneficial it is to everything, even from cognitive health as you age. And it's actually specifically important for women because women tend to eat less meat and get less of it from their diet. So again, I wouldn't say that what we're putting out is like supplement free, because I think that that's silly too, right? Like there are things that are incredibly beneficial or honestly necessary because they're just missing from our diets today that I would include in like a no.
Yeah, like the vitamin D conversation we were having.
For sure, like stuff like that. Like that. Because there's a lot of misconceptions out there where like creatine, for example, like you bring that up and it's like, oh, like, but I'm not trying to get bulky, or like, you think that it's just like, the gym heads that should be eating it. It's actually a really, really important supplement.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, what I meant, where I was going with that, and I think where I'm going with this, is like, we're not here to like pitch.
I never know where you're going with stuff.
We're not here to pitch a nutrition plan that we're not trying to sell people on shit. We're really trying to make an impact. We're trying to sell. Yes, we're trying to get you on our training programs. 100%. We don't deny it. But when it comes to nutrition, what we want to put out is like more lifestyle stuff, more realistic stuff. And what I'm really, really focused on is not restricting, but adding. It's really, really important that we are going to put out a message of what you add, protein, etc., not like, hey, this restrictive diet. If anything, the way I currently eat is highly restrictive, because it's very restrictive until it's not. But I think this idea of adding is going to be the key. And so, yeah, I'm curious what Gabe comes up with. He's the YouTube expert. By the way, if you have not seen our High Rocks YouTube video, make sure to check out the podcast show notes. We'll go ahead and link my YouTube in there. And we have our recent High Rocks competition, as well as the recent tactical games that I did. So make sure to check those out.
Yeah, some really good content going out and some really good content coming up in 2025. Yeah, man, when it comes to nutrition, like I've gone through my own, like journey of, I mean, I've tried everything, and I tend to be someone that buys in like hook, line, and sinkers and stuff until I hear otherwise. Like I'm a very, very strong beliefs, loosely held kind of guy. Like if I believe something to be true, like, dude, I believe it to be fucking true. But if you show me that like, hey, that's wrong, I'll be the first one to tell you like, I got that incredibly wrong and I've changed my mind about it. Cause it's silly to like, just because you believe something at one point to like dig your heels on it 100%. And I've gotten to the point where like guys like Jordan Syatt, guys like, women like E.C. Sinkowski, Lane Norton, Peter Attia a little bit. He tends to be just very, very like very scientific and dense, and like a little bit too much on like the longevity biohacking side of the spectrum for me. Like he talks about stuff that like is so advanced and over the top that I think 99% of people don't need to worry about like those things. Like he's talking about how to take, off-label all sorts of medications because they might like improve your mitochondria and help you live to like 120. Like I think that's too much. But like the other examples I had are people that have really come to respect and enjoy their content because they have all these conversations around nutrition with a level of nuance that I think is 100% necessary, because we're all incredibly individual. Like at the end of the day, what's going to work for you is going to work for you. And it might be completely different than what works for me. And that is even beyond like how the food actually impacts you. Like I think there's a big psychology element to it, to like, I enjoy the structure of counting my macros and counting my food every single day. Like to me, it gives me a sense of calm to know that I know amount of protein, carbs, and fats that I need to support my current goal. And if I count the food during the day, I know that I am supporting that goal. So I know I'm doing everything to go in that direction. That actually, to me, is like a very calming way to go about nutrition, because it's black and white. I know I'm doing it. I know for other people, that would be a very stressful component to nutrition. They're like, what? I need to do this like math or have an app or check labels. And for someone like that, I wouldn't recommend that. I would just recommend, hey, make sure that you're getting protein the size of your palm in every meal, making sure that you're getting plenty of fiber from veggies. Like, I love the addition by subtraction for some people because it really simplifies things, and it tends to solve a lot of the cravings and eating more of the snacky foods than they should in a very simple manner that doesn't add more stress to their routine. Because that's important too. Like, different personality types are going to be stressed by different approaches. And that's where I think that any conversation around nutrition needs to have a lot of nuance. And it's not, hey, everyone should intermittent fast. Everyone should count macros. Everyone should do the 800-gram vegetable challenge. There's no everyone should do anything when it comes to nutrition. There are some universal principles, but I think that that's a very important part of a nutrition conversation, is the fact that like it's so different and individual person to person.
Yeah, I just sent Liz I got a food sensitivity test. Have you ever had this done before?
Yeah.
So I just sent it to her. I don't know if she could pull it up, but
I've heard. I haven't looked into too much. I've heard they're complete bullshit,
bro. Why you gotta? Okay,
it's the biggest scam on the planet.
Really?
What I've heard, yeah.
Okay, so full disclosure, I got the blood work done from Blokes, right? Which 91% score, better than Gabe's, and then I went and got this food sensitivity test because I was really curious. Like, hey,
Did you do that through Blokes?
Yeah. So I did a food sensitivity test through Blokes. Here it is. So, if you're, I don't even know what we're looking at necessarily. It's 96 IgG food panel. So what they do is, so Liz, if you want to scroll down, they give like a rating or something, right? Gabe, you see that? So if there's no sensitivity detected, it's like 0 to, what is that? 0.199. And then there's class 1, class 2, class 3. And they basically go between no sensitivity, low sensitivity, moderate sensitivity, or high sensitivity. You see that, Gabe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see what I'm actually sensitive to. So there we go, right there. Look at that. So I have 0 in the like super severely sensitive, but I'm moderately sensitive to coconut and kelp. So I don't know what the fuck. Like, if I was going to be sensitive to something, I guess I'd be kelp. I mean, who the hell eats kelp?
Dude, the most surefire food sensitivity test you can do, we talked about this a little bit with Jordan Syatt, is do something super, super restrictive,
right?
Like carnivore, and then introduce like commonly, allergenic foods like gluten, dairy, legumes one at a time, and just see how you feel. Because I Googled it really quick, and at least this is what AI is saying, but food sensitivity tests are generally not accurate or effective, and allergy societies don't recommend them.
Perfect. So for the record, then, I guess the time that I took to prick my finger, pour blood onto this thing. No, it was good feedback.
I mean, I think it's a good kind of like confirmation thing to do, because like if you got that right and it says, hey, you're sensitive to coconut, and you're like, oh shit, like every time we cook something in coconut oil, like I feel really shitty the next day, then that would be good. Like that would be a good data point, in addition to the data point of like, just how does food make you feel? Dude, and I think that this is where
I didn't even think about the coconut oil. I didn't even think about that. So thank you.
Jesus.
And then there was a bunch on low, though. You saw those on the low sensitivity.
Yeah.
So those were things like dairy and gluten and stuff like that. In general, there was some low ones.
Yeah. And again, like if you're intentional about what you put in your body, which everyone should, and then that doesn't mean that like you don't eat the foods you enjoy or whatever, but intentional, I mean that like, hey, I enjoy sweets. I do. I have a sweet tooth, 100%. I probably have something that most people would consider like highly processed junky sweets every single day after dinner. Like I really enjoy a cookie, ice cream, like some of those mochi bites, whatever it is. But I know that I have the calorie allotment for it. So I'm not going to be in a caloric surplus. That's important to me. And I also know that at the end of the day, even if I have, 200, even 300 calories, which I would never, I don't really have that much. You're talking about 10% of my daily caloric intake is coming from these foods. Like you talk about 80-20 being a good sustainable way to live your life. Like if you're doing 90-10, you're golden. You're going to be great. Dude. You're going to be in the top 99 percentile of performance, health, all of that good stuff. And I'm not saying that that's me every single day, but if I'm doing that most days, I'm in a good place,
Dude, so the family and I, we were in Mexico for Thanksgiving, and my in-laws bought one of my favorite things on the planet. You ready? You know what these are? You know what these are. You know what these are. These are so good, dude. As a kid, my mom used to buy these for me for breakfast, which probably wasn't the best thing. Costco muffins, dude. Have you had a Costco muffin?
Not in a long time, but I know what you're talking about. And
dude, they're blueberry, poppy seed. Someone listening right now is like, fuck yeah. Dude, those things are so big and so delicious. But to your point, if that's what you're having, man, and you're eating good most of the time, you'll be all right. But what we want to put out with some nutrition content is just trying to round it out.
You have to remember that there are some people out there that are having a Costco muffin with coffee every morning for breakfast.
Right.
That's the difference, right? The difference is that if you're having a probably 500, 600 calorie pastry with zero protein and zero nutritional value every single day to start your day, you're poisoning yourself. You're 100%. You're doing one of the most impactful things that you can do to make your body feel incredibly, incredibly shitty. That is very different than, hey, this is a thing I really enjoy. And for the sake of it, we brought it on vacation and it was this really cool experience with my family because we all enjoy this really, really fun food and you can talk about it. And it's a cool memory. Those two things couldn't be more different, but yet it's the same food. And I think that that's where the nuance in nutrition conversation is so, so, so important, because that's why I hate people labeling foods as bad foods or good foods, because you would say then, quote unquote, that super highly processed Costco muffin is a quote unquote bad food. But in the context of how you enjoyed it, dude, you're all good. You're all good. And you should enjoy that. And you should have those moments. But if you're having it for breakfast every single morning, that's really bad. And you should stop that.
Listen to Gabe. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff we're going to be putting out. I don't know what it's going to look like, but that's going to be some YouTube content. We have a few other YouTube contents coming out that I'm really excited about. We got to figure out what competitions in 2025, things that I'm circling around my mind on. The first one for sure, I am doing jiu-jitsu competition for sure. I got to figure out which one and on what level I'm ready to make the commitment on, because there's local ones that are a little bit less commitment. And then there's big ones that are big commitments. So I'm trying to decide what level I want to commit on, but I definitely want to get in competitions at a brown belt before I get my black belt. Because that's important. I've competed at every belt and I just want to make sure that I compete at brown belt before I, hopefully one day get my black belt. So that one's definitely on my list. Tactical games with Matt Chan is definitely on my list. And then, dude, something else with you guys. We got to figure out what it is. I think are we going to talk about that on the podcast with Dennis and MDV?
We should.
What are we going to get them to commit to? What are we going to get them to commit to?
They have to decide. But I think the interesting conversation there too, because I remember, I'm pretty sure I asked him on camera, but I asked Dennis this because Dennis has never been the type of guy that he does the work every fucking day. The guy lives what we talk about. But even back in the CrossFit days, he was never the one that wanted to sign up for a competition, really wanted to compete. He did the open and stuff, but he was never the guy throwing down, signing up to throw down. And I think that there's something to be said about different personality types and needing that as an anchor to training, enjoying it. Cause I know that me and you, I just ordered my 2025 big ass calendar And one of the coolest things about having the 2024 one, because you can color code what you put on, it's right in front of me, you can't see it because it's opposite, is having a specific color for the races I was doing and having those mapped out for the whole year.
Yeah,
it's just, it just has something that like.
But let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Just let's pull on that thread. So Dennis, hard charger, fucking dude, just looks good. 2 kids, like all good, right? Chooses not to get in any type of competition. So back to the whole like judging thing, who are we to say that you should be doing competitions as long as you're on the path, you feel good, you're showing up great? That's one side. Okay. So one side is you feel good, you show up great. Like, who are we to say you should get in something? On the flip side, my question for that same person would be, do you want your kids to go compete? Is that important to you for them? And if so, why? What are they getting from competing at a young age that you believe is important? What is it? Overcoming adversity, learning how to do hard things, showing commitment, all these different things, right? So if the same person chooses as an adult, because he played college baseball, right? So obviously he's competed a lot in his life, but he hasn't recently. And we're using Dennis as an example, but there's thousands, millions of other people that are in this exact same boat, but then choose not to get into competition. But that yet they still see value in competition. How hard should we push to encourage them to do it? Because I guarantee you, dude, like no matter what people say, do you think it's them not wanting to put themselves out there? Or do you think they're just like, dude, I'm just over it? Because there's certain things that I'm over. Like, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that it's kind of one of those things where I think it's an incredibly powerful, motivating accountability tool for most people, but like some people don't need it. Like, dude, I've seen the way Dennis trains every single day. He'll strike when the iron's hot and he'll go in and just do something when it's not. Like, for everything that we talk about, you could argue, and we should ask him about this tomorrow. Like, I don't want to put words in his mouth. Like, does he need it? Is there other areas where he's, getting outside his comfort zone? Like maybe there's a benefit there. And then to your point with the question of the kids, like if you've competed up to the collegiate level in a sport, like you've gotten all the benefits of being out there and
but competing. Have you? But that's the question. Have you? Or does that stop at some point? So like I'll give you an example. I competed professionally in CrossFit for a decade. And I still learn things like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's interesting.
Right. But and again, like, I don't want to keep putting words in Dennis, but like one of the things that he does really, really well is you used to compete at the CrossFit Games, right? And now you sign up for these things because it like forces you to do things a little differently.
Right.
But like Dennis, in the time that I've known him, like he's gotten super into strongman training and taught himself that. He's gotten super into now like heavy kettlebells and taught himself that. Like he intrinsically like changes up how he approaches fitness just for the goal of like learning this new thing without necessarily having to go out there and compete. I would argue that for you, like even when we train with him, like you never do chin-ups, like you never do pull-ups with just an invert. Like you train, you do the same movements all the time in a very same format. You're anaerobic every single time. Like you would do the same type of workout from here to infinity if you were left to your devices. I think the good thing about you signing up for things is that it forces you to change up how you approach fitness, because on your own you wouldn't. I think that other people, just because of their natural curiosity with fitness and training, kind of have that already built in, if that makes sense. So I think that that's where it's like it's different. I think that the value that you get from it is very important because you wouldn't do that on your own. The value that I get from it is very important because I wouldn't be structured with my training on my own. I would just kind of like, I don't know, I wouldn't benefit as much from it because I'm not constantly trying to like do the thing that improves me. But yeah, it'll make for a good conversation when we have them on the podcast. I'm curious what their take is on it, because I know MDB is not a big, sign up or compete in something either. I've always been that way. I always I enjoy the anxiety and the nerves of the week leading up to it, which I know is different for you too. Like you don't necessarily get super nervous or anxious before these events, or maybe that was just High Rocks, but I enjoy that. Like I enjoy the rush of like shit, man, like not even getting a good night's sleep before going out there and doing the thing.
Well, I think it's all perspective too. Like, I'll give you an example. Like at High Rocks, I knew I was in for like a hard race. And the only thing that I was nervous about was not reaching my potential. That's what I was nervous about going out too hot, about not, having the appropriate nutrition. Like I was nervous about that. And I wanted to make sure that what happened to us a couple of weeks in advance wasn't going to happen again, which it didn't. And it was perfect. I thought, honestly, I thought we delivered, at least for myself, like a perfect execution. I don't know what I would have done any better. So I'm really happy with that. Right. But I've been nervous. Like, dude, the jiu-jitsu tournaments, they're nerve-wracking. Like, dude, jiu-jitsu, unlike anything else I've done. So yeah, of course, in CrossFit, you're in front of 20,000 people. Like there were some years were very, very intense, and you put a lot of work into like these moments. And so there's such a bulk of work that builds up to this moment that it does make you feel a little anxious. But in particular for jiu-jitsu, it's just different because it's not like it's not like my paycheck is determined based on my jiu-jitsu performance. But I think there's something weird about like that hand-to-hand combat. Like, dude, it definitely,
for sure.
Woo, it definitely.
Sure. Someone's trying to choke you out.
Someone's trying to choke you out. It definitely puts it in a different perspective. But we'll ask them. And yeah, I mean, to your point, like people get different things from competing. For me, I got in more running in the last 3 months or whatever it was when we talked about it on the podcast than I have in the last. Probably, I got more running in the last 3 months than I probably got in the last 3 years.
I also think that for me, the more I think about it too, like I show up as a better husband and dad, because that's everything we do, like stems back to that, right? Like that's what we talk about. And I legitimately mean that. Like I show up as a better husband and dad when I'm chasing my own goals, when it feels like I still have like, I still have a me thing that I'm trying to accomplish and get better at. That to me makes me just, I don't know. It's like a way to fill my cup so that and this cheesy thing to say, but it's a way to fill my cup so I still have left over to like, fill my family's cup. I think that unfortunately for a lot of,
that's good.
For a lot of men,
a little corny, but it was good. I liked it.
Yeah, it's a cliche saying, but it's true, right? Like if you're just passively, clocking in, clocking out, yes, you're working out, but you're not like, if I break this 3-hour marathon, which isn't like a crazy time by like running standards, but it's like, it's a really, really ambitious goal for someone that's never run a marathon before. Like if I do that, the sense of accomplishment and the work that went into doing something that, people would be like, hey, that's fucking impressive. That to me just makes me feel really good about myself and like the work that I put in to get something that is very difficult for people to do. Like there's a lot of, if you go on running forums and stuff, there's a lot of people that for 10 years they run and that's like their end goal. So for me to be able to do that, just like, I don't know, it makes me feel continuously like I'm getting just better as a human. And that to me, makes me show up better as a dad. I don't know if that makes sense or if I explain that.
No, it does.
But it's to me, like it always just feels like if I'm chasing something that is honestly really hard to get to, and I put in a lot of work to at least give myself a shot at getting there, I just feel like I'm constantly growing and improving in a very objective way. And that gives me the earned confidence to then, be able to go to my kids and be like, hey, I'm doing better. I'm better now than when you were born, like I'm a better man now and I'm doing it for you. And I don't say that explicitly, but that's, I guess, the thinking behind it.
Yeah, dude. Preaching to the choir. I love it, man. I love it. The kids grow up fast, so they grow up real fast.
He's going to be 2 next weekend, and it's mind-boggling.
Dude,
I don't understand how we got here.
Yeah, neither do I. I mean, next thing you know, like in a very short period of time, Caden's going to be able to lift me up with ease. Very short period of time.
That'll be the day. That'll be good.
No, it's going to happen. I mean,
yeah, for sure. It's crazy.
It's crazy. So. Yeah, man. For everybody listening, we really appreciate you checking out the podcast. Gabe and I, we have an opportunity. We feel blessed to be able to talk about our lives, talk about things that are important to us that I assume are important to you as well, if you're listening to the show. And what helps the show for sure is feedback from you guys on the newsletter, right? Just hit us up. Let us know what's going on. Let us know any topics you want us to discuss. And then if you get value from the episodes, whether it's all the other ones we've done with incredible guests or these, just sharing it with a friend, just be like, dude, you should check this out. Or if you're a mom or a wife listening to this and you're like, hey, these guys were saying some stuff that maybe my husband needs to hear, send it to him. But the more that we can get this shared, right, it just continues to grow a message. And our message is one of positivity. It's one of leveling up. It's one of improvement. And we're not stopping, and we're only going to continue to push it and frankly, just push it a lot harder going into 2025. Because I think we need more of it out there. More positivity, but more push. And in Gabe's term. And I'm gonna be pulling, Gabe's gonna be pushing. We're gonna be like this yin yang. We're both pushing, we're both pulling. That's what's happening. And that's it. That's all I got, man. Any closing remarks on this?
No, just a lot of this came out of, so we're recording this coming out of the 4-day weekend with, Thanksgiving. And I really, really spent a lot of time, like, what am I grateful for? And I'm so grateful that we get to talk to men on this platform, that we get to, for our jobs, like, this is what I get paid to do, man. And I fucking love it. And from that stemmed a lot of this, like, how can I do a better job at, hopefully moving the needle for people out there. And I hope that none of this comes out off as judgy or shaming people, because that's not my intention at all. I did a lot of thinking about this, and honestly, it's like, I think I can be more transparent or just more like bold in how, like, I would want someone to, like, shake me if I was, not where I wanted to be. So hopefully this fires people up, man. I'm fired up. A lot of this too is like me talking to myself. Like, it's like, hey, if I say everything that I said at the beginning of this podcast, like, I better fucking show up in 2025, right? Like, I can't say these things on one side and then on the other side, like, not do the work myself. Like, it puts me in a position where I have to walk the walk because I'm over here talking the talk. So it serves a purpose, a selfish purpose for me as well. But it all stems from all the gratitude I have for being able to do this and be a part of Train Hard and everything we're doing. So super grateful for everyone that's listening, man. And it's going to be a good year.
Yep. On behalf of myself, Gabe Yanez, and the Train Hard team, you guys keep getting after it. Hope your family is doing awesome, and see you again next week for another incredible episode.